Is the 50-day challenge sustainable and life-changing? I started the 50-day challenge because I was curious to see how implementing daily rules would affect my productivity. I'm wary of the word rules because I like the freedom to change my mind. How do you feel about working your way through 7 rules a day? I can just about remember 3 things offhand, but 7. I was nervous that I was putting too much on my plate, and I'll share with you in a moment whether I think 7 rules a day are attainable. That said, you are welcome to jump ahead, check out the chapters below to see whether I think this challenge was sustainable and life-changing. But I'd like to invite you to stick around as I share my results from this challenge, as well as what I wish I knew before I started this challenge. To start things off, this challenge is a good fit for people who like to take things off. I found it rewarding knowing that I was working through these rules, mentally ticking them off in the day. If you kind of go with the flow or spontaneous, then this challenge can feel restricting at times. There is room for spontaneity, but if you're working full-time, perhaps in a relationship, busy with kids, then you have limited time. So my free time was challenge time, which was awesome because I packed these rules full of things that I love doing, but don't usually get to do because I would find ways to procrastinate doing them. So the 7 rules that I tried to stick to for 50 days were up by 8 a.m, a mindful morning routine with no digital distractions, a mindful diet, exercise, learning something new, reading, and journaling. What I wish I did from the start is front load as many of the rules that I possibly could. This meant that I was looking at trying to get majority of the rules completed and ticked off before 1 p.m. so that when it came to the evening, I had maximum 1 rule that I still had to work through. I found that if I had 2 or 3 rules to still catch up on in the evening, that one or all of them would suffer. So if you're planning to only get started on your rules after work, then you might find it to be quite a mental struggle to get going. I think what could have also been fun is to maybe do this challenge with someone. So in that way I would be held accountable, but it would also be fun to share some wins that I had along the way. Community is a gem, so if you're thinking about starting this challenge, it might be fun to invite someone to join you. That said, I read in Outliers, which was a book that I reread during this challenge, that if you are searching for fulfillment, that it helps to go about your tasks autonomously, that your tasks, or at least in this case rules, are complex enough that you are being stimulated both mentally and physically, and that there is a connection between the effort you put into something and then the reward that you get from the effort that you originally put in. So how does this apply to the 50-day challenge? I guess I went about this challenge autonomously, but I did share my experience here on YouTube, and I also connected with Island, who has mastered this challenge a couple of times already. So if I think about it, I did the work alone, but it was somewhat of a shared experience. Let's talk about complexity. Finding time is always difficult. Making time requires planning, but that works best for me. So the first complexity of this challenge was time to do the challenge. However, I was mentally stimulated by the books I read and the courses I did. As I mentioned, I reread Outliers, I read Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart, and I've started reading Taming the Toddler. I don't know about you, but there's nothing for me like reading a book. However, for some reason, it is so difficult. It is much easier for me to just open my phone, go to YouTube and watch some content than to sit down and read a book. But I find the minute that I start reading, I know it's been a good life choice because I always seem to get so much more from reading than I do get from watching a video. Then I also did 2 courses. I did Gordon Ramsay's course, which I made a YouTube video about, and then I also did Kris Jenner's masterclass on personal branding, which has resulted in me coming up with a strategy to rebrand this channel. So stay tuned for what's to come. So mentally, my brain has had a nice workout over the last 50 days, and I just have to say I'm surprised. I don't think I would have picked up a book if it wasn't for this challenge, so it was fun to have an excuse to have to read. And also, I'm excited for the future and what I've got planned for this channel. Physically, I've also managed to achieve quite a few things. I learned how to do a pull-up and I learned how to do a backflip on the trampoline. But the big goal was to see if I could learn how to do a backflip on the ground. So subscribe if you'd like to see the outcome of that video. I'm currently editing it now. Then I'll include diets in this category because I managed to stay somewhat mindful with my eating for the first half of the day, and then at evening time I would just go with the flow with what we were having at home. But honestly, what does it even mean to be healthy anymore? I just tried to eat a plain and simple meal, as well as a meal that made me feel somewhat nourished, and this was a good strategy for me because it gave me the energy and the fuel to do the exercise that I planned for the day, and I felt good mentally, so that I wanted to learn. I didn't feel like sluggish or down. So that's kind of my strategy with the diet, but I don't know. I believe everything in moderation. Then I hardly ever know where my phone is. Literally, I have no idea where my phone is right now. So getting through my mindful morning routine without digital distractions, well, that was a bit of just an empty rule for me. I don't have anything profound to say about it. The only distractions I would have would be life or the power cuts that we keep having in this country. But apart from that, I just kind of did my morning routine. And then I did mention when I started this challenge that I kind of was cheating by having the rule of waking up at 8 a.m. Mom, I'm always up before 8 a.m. But I found that even needing to remember 6 rules just top of mind, it was really challenging. I should have written them down. That would have been a great place to start. But I found myself trying to remember 7 rules every single day, and I would find myself counting them quite often on my hand or forgetting something, and I didn't really like that. So I think whatever rules you decide to do, it would help writing them down so that you can tick them off as opposed to needing to mentally check them off. There's power in writing things down. This is a good segue to journaling. There is nothing quite like journaling. I never feel like it though. I also never feel like exercising, which is why I try to get that done first thing in the day. And I have to do the same with journaling, because if I leave journaling to the end of the day, it's rare that I actually do it. So I found that quite difficult. But when I do journal, there's nothing that gives me the mental clarity like journaling. Not even exercise comes close. So it's hard, but it's worth it. A good rule that I definitely think I'm going to be taking with me into the next phase of my life after this 50-day challenge. So did this challenge change my life? On days where I managed to get through all the rules, yes, I would say it did. I enjoyed the mental and physical reset, and this overflowed into my work and personal life, and I felt abundant. I felt radiant from the inside out when I got through all the rules. But I didn't always get through all the rules. On days where I got out on the wrong side of the bed, or when life threw curveballs, this challenge just felt like another thing I had to get through in the day. Here's the thing though, when I did choose to soldier through those rules, even on those days where I felt like I had so much on my plate, I would see a turnaround in how I felt that day. But to be honest, there were also days where I just ran out of time, or where I just wasn't in the mood to finish the rules that I had to do. Like I said, evenings, they're not my best times for motivation. So if I had a lot going on in the evenings, then it was unlikely that I would get through everything I needed to get through that day. Do I think that this challenge is sustainable? Well, I went into this challenge with the mindset of doing my best every day. There were some days where, or actually there were quite a few days where I hit 100% of the rules, and those are great. But there were also days when I operated at about 50 or 60%. So I failed. If we had to look at this challenge of 50 days getting everything right every day, I definitely didn't do that. But I'm proud with what I was able to do. And I guess if you're going with that mindset, then yeah, maybe it's sustainable. But am I going to carry this challenge forward? As I mentioned, I struggle to remember more than 3 things just off the top of my head. So I think I'll take 3 rules with me going forward. And those 3 will be reading, journaling, and then I'll add a new one, which is working on my screenplay. So I'm going to be trying those 3 going forward. But I have to acknowledge that exercise and mindful diet, those have become habits for me that I try to incorporate every day. Identity habits, if you've read James Clear, big fan. Anyway, those are things that I've set systems, so they just kind of happen organically, as opposed to me mentally having to make them something that they may not be quite yet. How about you though? What rules are in your 50-day challenge? What books are you reading? Let me know in the comments below. Tap that like button if you found this video helpful, and consider subscribing if you'd like to journey with me into the new era of this YouTube channel. I must say, I have never been so excited to plan content before. I think it's going to be fun, so come along and join in on You'll have to subscribe to see what I muted out there. But thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. I'll see you in one of my next videos. Take care. Bye.